I have spent the last month following breadcrumbs and going down rabbit trails, trying to uncover what is at the bottom of Christian counseling institutions. And I think that my friend Donald here asks a really important question.
Christian counseling and psychology. Can the two get along?
Here's a hint. No, we're not going to get along. I am Shannon Q, and before we start, I need to acknowledge something. Investigating the topic of this video has brought out some pretty strong emotions in me because I have a passion for people receiving quality mental health care without stigmatization. As such, I may seem slightly more animated than usual, so please make use of the links that I have provided you in the description. Do your own research and advocate for your own understanding of this topic. I am going to do my utmost to make a measured and impartial presentation of the facts here, but in this video, it's particularly difficult for me to retain my composure. It's also really important that I say up front that I know that there are a myriad of qualified and amazing counselors of all faith who do amazing work in their fields and operate ethically and professionally, but these are not the people that I'm going to be talking about today. In my most recent video, which should be linked above, I discovered that Christian counselors existed and that they had their own independent designations. As a person who holds a degree in psychology, I thought that that was interesting, so I decided to look into it a little bit further. And that's how I first encountered my friends at the Above and Beyond Christian Counselling Ministries and our good friend Donald. Our friend Donald has a Ph.D. in Christian counseling, and he runs the Above and Beyond Ministries and Christian Counseling Services. And this perplexed me because Donald says things like this.
The term psychology, let's start with that, comes from the Greek word psyche. Psyche was the Greek goddess of the soul. So, for us as Christians, that ought to tell us something. That ought to be a good starting point. Why would we presume to get much truth from a field of study that based its name on the Greek goddess? Okay.
This struck me as inordinately odd and more than a little bit dangerous and misinformed. Donald has a Ph.D. in Christian counseling and runs an organization that provides paid counseling services. How could he not be ethically bound to provide accurate information about the field that he's operating within? So I went to Above and Beyond Ministries' website, which is linked in their video descriptions, and I took a look at his credentials. And that's where things start to become complex and more than a little bit upsetting. I hope you're ready because we are about to go for a really frustrating journey together, you and I. Above and Beyond Counseling Services has 3 physical locations in Florida, each furnished with counselors who administer the Arno profile system in their practice. I'm going to be getting into this system in later videos, but for now, here's a brief introduction of who is offering and supporting this system.
You see the logo in the top left-hand corner? That's with the National Christian Counselors Association's logo, and that's who we're affiliated with, and they have a clinical diagnostic tool called the Arno Profile System.
As I said, I'm going to go into more detail in later videos because this approach is its own special mess, but what is important to know for now is that this system is an unsubstantiated, unverified creation of the Arnos and is the foundation for the degrees being offered and counseling strategy being employed. And pay close attention to the logo in the top corner because the National Christian Counselors Association is going to play a really important role later on. Now, I have a degree in psychology and I've taken honors level courses on personality, and until now, I have not ever heard of the Arno temperament analysis. So I decided to find out who made it and where it came from. The Arno profile system was named after its founders, Doctors Phyllis and Richard Arno. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes to completely sum up who an individual is and how they interact with the world around them, as well as their spiritual views. It cuts out all the hard work of having to build a relationship and understand a client before you start counseling them. And importantly, I cannot find any references for it anywhere outside of this corner of Christian counseling world. And I am almost certain that it is a load of unfounded, unverified nonsense. I also couldn't find any record of where the doctors Arno got any sort of education or what their background is. I searched back through years of psychology and counseling research and didn't even find one single citation for a Dr. Arno. And I couldn't find one scholarly citation anywhere in any database that even made reference to the Arno profile system. But I did find out that he was awarded several honorary doctorates, so that at least explains the Ph.D. So far we have our friend Donald telling us that we cannot trust psychology because sometimes words have Greek origins, while operating a monetary exchange counseling practice that is primarily based on the implementation of a program that has no proven efficacy whatsoever, created by a doctor with unknown and questionable credentials. Now, if you're like me, the next question you might ask yourself is, how in the hell is this even possible? Great question, because this is where things start to get really, really messed up. The first thing that I took a look at was what it took to gain credentials as a Christian counselor. There are a multitude of schools who offer the program. Some are legitimate universities who offer programs where they teach counseling from a Christian perspective. At the end of these programs, you have a degree that qualifies you for a state license. This means that you have to register with the National Counseling Board and apply for state licensure in order to be able to operate a counseling practice. But that is not what's happening here. As it turns out, there is a really prevalent private education industry that has loose to no regulation. And that industry has several schools that offer online training and degrees in Christian counseling. Many of these online degree mills offer you the opportunity to go literally from a GED all the way through up to a Ph.D. in Christian counseling, all online. Now, on its face, that may not seem ultimately concerning, but it is. As luck would have it, our friends at Above and Beyond Christian Counseling just so happen to offer this program through the NCCA. So let's take a look at what's available to you.
All right, what are the programs that we have to offer? There's basically 4 of them. If you have a high school GED, a high school diploma or a GED equivalent, you can pursue a bachelor's degree in Christian counseling. If you have a bachelor's degree in any discipline, you can pursue a master's. Have a master's degree in any discipline, you can pursue a PhD. And if you're just interested in getting licensed as a counselor, we have an NCCA license-only program.
There are some really important things to note here. Aside from the fact that the program itself is based off of an unregulated, untested, unsupported system, several statements here throw up serious red flags to me. Aside from the fact that the idea of getting a PhD online is something that has never even entered my consciousness until now, he said that your prerequisite to entry at any level was attaining the preceding level in any discipline. Any. Not a relevant discipline like psychology or sociology or even counseling. Any discipline. As an example, prior to getting his PhD in Christian counseling through the Jacksonville Seminary, Donald attained his BA in mechanical engineering and his master's in business administration from Stanford. Essentially, you can have a base in anything at all and gain entry into any tier of this program. This really perplexed me. At this point, it was clear that the program itself was based off of questionable and potentially dangerous academics. So how could they be granting PhDs? Surely there was a governing body. They're accredited, so there must be something legitimate about what they're doing. And sure enough, they are accredited. by the Accrediting Commission International via the National Christian Counselling Association, which is the board that provides the license for practice. And I promise I will get to them. But how do you get accredited? So let's take a look at ACI. The Accrediting Association International is an institution that provides accrediting primarily to Christian education programs. It operates out of a church in Arkansas, and it's run by John F. Scheel, who is also a pastor at the church who coincidentally runs 2 schools of his own, which are also accredited by his accrediting institution. It turns out that there's no oversight of curriculum in private schools, and apparently accreditation is just the artifice of integrity. So these schools can teach whatever they like, charge whatever they want, and appear to be legitimate by receiving rubber stamp accreditations and then operate with impunity. But even after getting this degree, master's, or Ph.D., how could you legally be licensed to charge money to clients and operate a practice? You are dealing with intimate and integral components of people's mental health. There is obviously something in place that prevents people from being able to charge money to the sick or the vulnerable under the guise of an essentially fake PhD and call themselves counselors. Turns out that there isn't. Not if you're doing it on behalf of God. And this is where I started getting really, really mad. After taking a look at the methods, education, and accreditation, I decided to take a look at licensing. If you are charging clients money to provide what is tantamount to mental health services, presenting yourself as a counselor and displaying a degree, you must be licensed to practice in all American states and Canadian provinces. These licenses serve as a way for potential clients to discern that you have a legitimate certificate or degree in your field from a recognized institution in counseling or psychology. Participate in continuing education to ensure that you are engaging in the best practices, and it indicates that you have been being reviewed for accountability and ethics on a continuous basis. To acquire this license and operate legally as a counselor and charge clients, at the very least, you must have a counseling course from a community college and can have all the way up to a PhD from a university. And you must remain in good standing, or your license will be revoked, and you will no longer be able to counsel clients without repercussions from the state and total revocation of your license. On the surface, it would appear that Above and Beyond Christian Counselling is a licensed practice. They proudly display the seal of the NCCA, and all active counselors have bios indicating their NCCA membership. But who's the NCCA? The NCCA is the National Christian Counselors Association. They are one of a multitude of licensing bodies that charge Christian counselors membership fees in order to present themselves as licensed Christian counselors. But there's a catch. There isn't a single state in America that will recognize the NCCA license and provide approval for a Christian counselor who is educated in this fashion to open up a private practice using their credentials or their methodology. Not one. But these practices exist. They operate openly. So you might ask yourself, how? How can they operate without legal ramifications when they are employing methods that have no proven efficacy? And as you're going to see in some of my next videos in this series, could be incredibly dangerous and detrimental to their clients. Well, lucky for you, my friends, I found their playbook. So I'm about to tell you. I have just put pages 13 through to 15 on the NCCA catalog up on the screen. If you want to take a moment to pause this video so that you can read for yourself, please feel free. I have also put the link in the description to the NCCA site where it can be found. It will stop being displayed as I summarize it for you, so if you want to pause it, please do it now. Essentially, what this playbook tells you is that this profession and its associated education aren't recognized by anyone. And it's not legal to be a practicing counselor in any state unless you have a recognized education and adhere to national and state standards and you are licensed. However, lucky for them, there's a loophole. As it turns out, No state can have jurisdiction over the business actions of an agent of the church or a clergy member. So if you feel called by God to be a Christian counselor and you wish to employ the Arno method of temperament analysis, you are willing to pay for a fake online Ph.D. and you want to start charging patients to tell them that they need to cut their ungodly soul ties, tell homosexuals that they're going to be punished by God for being who they are, inform people that they have demons influencing them, tell people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia that it's against God's wishes for them to seek psychological intervention or take medication, and instead they should pray. You can do so in 2 easy steps. Step 1. You just need to find a church that is willing to ordain you. As it turns out, you have several options. You can be a minister of administration. That one's my personal favorite because what does that even mean? You could be a missionary. You could be a youth pastor. Whatever you choose, any of them affiliate you with the church as an agent of the church, and you no longer fall under state jurisdiction. Step 2. You need to find a church that's willing to agree to operate as the overseeing body for your practice. Once you are attached to a registered 501c3, you fall under the auspices of the church, even if your practice isn't physically located in the same area. You simply have to include the affiliation in your business registration, and you're in the clear. You can now operate with impunity, presenting your illegitimate Ph.D. credentials, calling yourself a doctor, employing harmful, unregulated therapeutic practices, and charging money to clients who look at those credentials, accreditations, and licenses, thinking it means that they can trust you, all while making the proclamation that you're doing the work of God. And there's one other thing to consider. What if you're a member of a church that has some ethical standards and would not deign to support you doing something so reprehensible as to take advantage of the most stigmatized and vulnerable among us for your financial gain? What can you do then to answer the call from God to go into Christian counseling? Well, that's easy. You can just do what our friends at Above and Beyond have done. Just open your own ministry. Register it as a 501c3. Segregate it from the operations of your counseling practice. And keep all the profits and the oversight in-house. And one last piece of important information about the NCCA. You remember them. They're the ones I said were going to be important later. They are the institution that sells you your degree, provides you with a rubber stamp license, and gives you the playbook on how to set yourself up within the loophole that gets you around state licensing requirements so that you can open up a counseling practice employing the Arno temperament analysis. It's probably not going to come as a surprise to you that the president of the National Christian Counselling Association is our friend Richard Arno, the same man who developed the pseudoscientific method that is being employed by this particular sect of Christian counselors. At this point, I am refusing to give him the respect that he might anticipate receiving by recognizing any of his honorary doctorate degrees. Let me be clear, it is not simply Above and Beyond that are employing this strategy and opening up practices. It's prevalent. The directory on the NCCA site lists hundreds of counseling services all across the United States operating businesses where they charge money for these services while presenting themselves as legitimate, educated, licensed counselors, many with PhDs. If it wasn't so abhorrent and opportunistic to take advantage of vulnerable people who turn to you for mental health services, it would almost be a brilliant business model. And if you don't think that that's what it is, then let's have our friend Donald explain it to you for himself.
It's important, I believe, to understand that it's not a sin and is perfectly acceptable to view your counseling venture as a business also. Failure to operate from that viewpoint can result in broken hearts and unfulfilled dreams when things do not magically happen the way that we might expect. The body of Christ desperately needs competent Christian counselors who are not ashamed of their calling, gifts, nor even charging for their services. When the word gets out, just like other successful enterprises, people will find you. It takes effort, time, wisdom, and faith for fruit, but it will come if He's called you to put your hand to that plow.
I have included all of the relevant links in the description. Please advocate for your own understanding. Follow the links and do your own research. As I mentioned at the onset, I have a passion for destigmatization of mental health issues and more open access to treatment options. So finding this out was really upsetting for me. So please account for my bias and look for yourselves. And if you are a Christian who is seeking therapeutic assistance, please use the link that I have down below where you can find a state licensed counselor to assist you. There are a multitude of amazing counselors, therapists, and psychiatrists who are Christian. Don't be taken advantage of when you need help the most. This last message is directed at Above and Beyond and the NCCA. You are in my life now. I will not stand by. This will be a series, and you won't be operating with impunity, uncontested, without accountability for your claims anymore. You're welcome to come here and speak to me and prove that I'm wrong, but this is just the beginning. Thank you very much to everybody who watched this video today. Please like and share this video and leave your comments down below. As always, please be respectful in your interactions and productive in your dialogues. Also, I now have a Discord server where I have voice chats and participate in discussions with all of you. And if you would like to support the channel and the work that I do, you can do so via PayPal or Patreon links, which are in the description down below. And as always, help elevate the discourse.